Those of you who haven't heard of the case before, this is the D.B. Cooper case from 1971. In 1971, D.B. Cooper here, who's pictured here in a sketch, actually two sketches, hijacked an airline from Portland to Seattle in November 24th, 1971, Thanksgiving Eve. And it was a Northwest Orient Airlines, and he bought a ticket, and there was nothing extraordinary about him. He looked like a regular person, except he was all dressed in black. He had a black sunglasses, black coat, and a black clip-on tie. And he sat in the back of the plane, and he ordered a bourbon and a soda, and he stood around 5'10" to 6 feet tall. So you could just describe him as a regular passenger, and the name he used was D.B. Cooper, and it's largely believed to be an alias. And shortly into the flight, he passed a note to the stewardess. At first, the stewardess didn't really even take the note seriously, but then he told him that she should take a look at it. And the note was an extortion where he wanted $200,000 and 4 parachutes when the plane landed in Seattle. And he also wanted a refueling truck. And it was written all in black felt pen, and it's in capital, and it said, if you don't adhere to his demands, I'll do the job. And let me get a clip on here. Let's see, one moment, please. And here's a miniature clip.
He was the first man in U.S. history to hijack a plane for ransom. He leapt out of a commercial jet with a parachute, $200,000, and was never seen again, dead or alive. The mystery has frustrated the FBI for nearly 40 years.
I think he was just a sleazy, rotten criminal.
But has given the public a lasting legend. Who was D.B. Cooper?
Actually, really nobody knows who he was. And as you can see, the case attracted quite a bit of attention, not only nationally, but actually internationally. And stewardesses who interact with him also describe him as calm and polite. And he requested the $200,000 that he wanted in negotiable American currency, an unusual terminology that kind of drew attention to perhaps his where he was from and stuff like that. And he wanted 4 parachutes also. And authorities were notified as soon as the skyjacking took place. They radioed law enforcement, and when the plane was forced to circle over Seattle for a while, they got everything set, and they got $200,000 and parachutes, and the truck ready to be refueled, and the law enforcement was able to microfilm the cash that they gave them, so they were able to record the serial numbers. And the plane landed around 5:30, and everything was delivered to him. And here's some additional clips as to exactly how this process took place, how the hijacking, if I get this on here, one moment.
Did he survive? Now, for the first time.
And here's him requesting corresponding with the stewardess is a bit here, if I can get that. One moment.
Just sit by me. The shocked stewardess asks the man if he's serious. She calls her colleague, Tina Mucklow. Inside the hijacker's briefcase, he reveals what appears to be a bomb. He holds the bare ends of 2 wires. threatening to blow up the plane unless his demands are met.
Yeah, like I said earlier, as I said earlier, at first they didn't really take the hijacking seriously, but then when they saw the bomb, they began to take it seriously, and law enforcement was notified quickly. Now, after the plane landed in Seattle and everything was delivered, Cooper made an unusual request. He wanted the plane to fly to Mexico City at a low speed at only 10,000 feet, and he had an instrument on his wrist that determined the altitude. And of all things, he wanted the landing gear down. And that created quite a bit of controversy because the pilot didn't know if he could even fly the airplane with the landing gear down. And him and DB Cooper went back and forth on a phone line that was connected to the back of the plane, and finally the pilot said, "I'm not going to be able to fly this plane with the landing gear down." So Cooper relented, and he was planning on opening up during the flight. Here's some additional information as to...
He's sitting in the back, and he has a bomb.
The hijacking is relayed to the control tower. Northwest Orient and the FBI are alerted.
The dispatcher told me that there had been a hijacking of a Northwest airliner at Portland Airport, and to get there pronto.
Meanwhile, Cooper makes his demands. He wants $200,000 placed in a knapsack. He also wants 4 parachutes, 2 main back chutes, and 2 safety front chutes. The terrified attendant takes both notes forward to the captain.
Now, when Cooper requested this stuff, he may have had some knowledge about airplanes, aviation, so he may have worked in that capacity, or perhaps worked as a pilot, or in some capacity had a connection to the airplane industry or the airline industry. That's already been speculated, but it's never been proven. Now, he had some knowledge, but it wasn't great knowledge. Like he didn't know how to operate the controls to open the back of the plane. And let me advance things a bit here, see if I can get a... Here's another clip. One moment.
Year 23, which allows for low altitude flying. Meanwhile, 2 Air Force jets shadow the plane. But they can't maintain such a low speed and have to circle around the hijacked plane. Cooper orders Tina Mucklow to join her colleagues in the cockpit. Tina notices that Cooper is
And the plane left the Seattle airport around 7:40, and there were 5 people on board. Cooper let all the passengers go. And unfortunately, the planes that followed it, law enforcement planes, traveled too fast, so they're hard to, like I said, as you saw in the clip, they're hard to follow that particular airplane. And Cooper was alone at the back of the plane, and they noticed the AFT staircase going down at around 8:02, and it's believed Cooper jumped around 8:13 because the plane seemed to took a jump there. And let me take that on screen. One moment, please.
tying something around his waist. She thinks he's attaching the bag of money to himself.
Captain, I have an indication that the aft stairway door has been opened.
Stairway door.
The warning light indicates that the rear door and stairs have been deployed.
Jump out.
A Boeing 727.
Now, after Cooper jumped around 8:13, the plane continued on to Reno, Nevada, and it landed in Reno, Nevada, and it was surrounded by law enforcement. And Cooper had since jumped over the state of Washington. Exactly where remains unclear. There's been a lot of discrepancy of that, and there's been some revisionist history determined the actual jump location. And the tie was found on the plane, as well as 2 of the 4 parachutes, and they have a network of composites, but the composites of Cooper vary greatly. And that's hindered the investigation. And people who spent time with him and others who also spent time with him have come up with different types of sketches. And not knowing exactly where the landing zone was also hurt the investigation. And he was really never identified. In 1980, some money was recovered. It was recovered upstream from the location where I think he landed, which is quite peculiar. And let me see if I get another clip on there. And here's some information about the investigation. One moment, please.
Best we can to solve the case. Agent Carr is for the first time in FBI history recruiting the help of the public. These citizen sleuths have offered their services for free in the hope of finally solving the mystery of D.B. Cooper. Paleontologist Tom Kay could soon uncover new secrets from Cooper's tie left on board.
As you can see, the FBI is quite frustrated with the case. They've even kind of requested help from the public and stuff like that. And over 1,200 suspects have been looked into, and almost all were cleared. So none of them were ever arrested for being D.B. Cooper. And it wasn't until the year 2001 where they came up with probably their best suspect ever. And then the name of that person was Dwayne Weber. He was an antiques dealer in Florida. And he fit the profile to a T, and he had mentioned to two people that he was the Skyjacker, and there's some circumstantial evidence pointing to him as the Skyjacker, but it couldn't be proven. In recent years, there's been another suspect, L.D. Cooper. Him and his brother have been introduced as suspects, and again, neither of them can be proven, but both fit into the category of their potential suspects. And as the years went by, the investigation continued, and nobody was ever arrested. And as a result of the skyjacking there's been security changes for airports. Cooper vein has been introduced on airplanes, so the backstairs cases can't go down. And unfortunately, they saved the cigarette butts that Cooper was smoking on the flight. He was a chain smoker apparently, and he left several cigarette butts, and those were collected by law enforcement. Unfortunately, those are missing, and nobody knows what happened to them. Now, if they could find those, they could potentially get DNA, and if they could match that against some of their suspects, they could be identified, but that hasn't taken place. So it's quite a case here, and a lot of information here, and if you there are a lot of books about it. If you just surf the internet, you'll see his name mentioned in forums quite frequently, and a lot of websites about it. And if you heard about this case before, hopefully it's a quick flashback. If you haven't, hopefully a quick introduction. Let's see if I can get another clip on there that'll, let's see. One moment.
Is when the pressure change was reported at around 8:10. Factoring in the strong westerly winds creates a huge search area of 28 square miles.
As you can see, it's quite a confusing case. There's different reports of landing areas, different reports of what he looked like, whether he survived, did he land in the water, did he even get his parachute open? No one really knows. And there's even a book that was recently written about the case, and it turned out to be a bestseller. So it's a case that attracted quite a bit of attention, and it has a very mysterious nature to it. Just the answers just aren't there. Who was D.B. Cooper? Did he survive? Okay, did he land in the water? Where is he? What happened to the money? Where is he today? No one really knows. It's quite a case, quite a mystery. And hopefully that should do it. And if everything uploaded okay, everything should go through okay. And here's the sketches, and with or without his glasses on. And let's see.